It's Wednesday. It's 5 Minute Rehab Day. Come on in, come on in. This is Taisha Presley, the owner and the founder of Legacy Empowerment Services. We are a mental health private practice. We're located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we work with adolescents and young adults who've experienced some type of dysfunction and want to rehabilitate their lives. Come on in, and happy Wednesday, everyone. Hope you're having a beautiful Wednesday, as I am as well. I wanted to do a part two from last week's 5 Minute Rehab, where we talked about parenting styles. And today I said we were going to talk about, well, what do you do with it? What do you do with the fact that either I or my co-parent are authoritative, authoritarian, permissive, or uninvolved? We each take space in each one of those, one or more of those parenting styles, and they conflict with one another. So what do we do about it? So wanted to give you 4 tips on what do you do about conflicting parenting styles. All right, tip number 1 is radical acceptance. Radical acceptance. And what exactly is radical acceptance? Radical acceptance is when you, without judgment, are able to embrace what is not something that you would typically want to actually experience or be going through, or you might have thoughts about. So it's when you are able to embrace what is actually present without judgment. That is when you open yourself up to other possibilities that you may not be able to actually see in the beginning because you're so dead set against it being so. So the first thing is radically accepting that, number 1, there will be differences. You are your own person. Your co-parent is their own person, and you get to be that. So when you acknowledge that everyone gets to just be who they are, and who you are, your identity shows up in your parenting, and everyone gets to have that. So when you are able to radically accept that there will be differences, and the differences are not good, they're not bad, they just are what they are with no judgment. And those differences actually help to create richer experiences for your mutual child. So when you're able to allow the other parent to be who they are, that opens the co-parenting space up to so much more. So that's tip number 1. All right, tip number 2 is not only acknowledging that there are differences, but going a step further and actually checking yourself and having some self-reflection about, but what are your thoughts about those differences? So sometimes when people are different from us, we have a tendency to judge those differences because they're different. We're actually, sometimes judgment is just curiosity turned in a different direction. So sometimes that judgment is just curiosity that we haven't leaned into. And so if you're able to allow yourself the space to, number 1, self-reflect about, well, what does their differences, what they bring to the co-parenting space, how does that reflect upon me? And does it bring anything up for me? Does it trigger you in any kind of way? Does it make you upset, sad, anxious, nervous because of your past, because of how you were parenting, because of what your thoughts and your systems of belief about what a co-parenting, what a co-parent should be, or what a parent should be? What does that all bring up for you? Getting really clear on that for yourself, and then actually having a conversation with your co-parent possibly about what that brings up for you, and asking yourself, well, why does this come up for me? And maybe digging a little bit deeper for yourself. That's tip number 2. Tip number 3 is, once you are clear on, well, what does it bring up for you? If you identify that there are some major things that it brings up for me that are considered red flags or considered no-goes. And sometimes, depending on where you are in your co-parenting space, you may be able to negotiate those major things with your co-parent. Now, here's a word of warning. There are major things and there are minor things. You want to be able to discern what the minors are and let those go. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to set yourself up for always kind of whacking moles throughout your co-parenting space, because that's not helpful either. And it leads to your co-parent seeing you from a lens that is not helpful or healthy. So you're able to identify for yourself what are the major things that you actually do want to address with your co-parent. What you want to do is use assertive language that maximizes your ability to get what you want. And what you want to also take into consideration is the timing, who your co-parenting is, and you want to also make sure that you are addressing it in a way that they can actually receive the conversation, not turn away from it, okay? All right, and last tip, you want to be able to communicate those differences to your child. What you don't want to happen is that your child splits. And splitting is when a child is able to kind of get in between the co-parents, because the kids, they know our weaknesses, right? They know your co-parents' weaknesses and yours. They know when you guys don't like each other. They know when you're not on the same page, and they can actually use you guys as not being on the same page as a way to manipulate the two of you against one another. So you don't want that. But what you do want to do is you want to be able to communicate to your child that each home is different and has different rules, different expectations, different experiences, and that's quite okay. And if you and your co-parent are at that space, and if you're not, you can call me, but if you can get to the place where you're able to back one another's experience, back one another's parenting style, that will be extremely, extremely helpful as well, because it will help you guys to be unified, especially in front of your child. All right, so those are my 4 strategies or tips for co-parents that may have conflicting parenting styles, and how you can kind of become a cohesive unit, especially with your child, so that your child will benefit from being in this co-parenting space. So number 1, it is radically accept that there will be differences. Number 2, acknowledge the differences and actually check yourself and begin to self-reflect about those differences. And number 3, negotiate the majors that you experience and that you want to maybe change. And number 4, communicate to your child in a unified way. If you guys want some support with your co-parent and co-parenting relationship, make sure that you go to www.rehabilitateyourlife.com and sign up today for the Family Transitions Coaching Program. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.